Good morning. Good morning. Sky blue fishing out here at the lake. About to throw some night crawlers, marshmallows attached, out into the water. Catch some of these giant trout. Fishy, good morning, brother. About to throw some night crawlers with marshmallows on, buddy. Hope you had a beautiful night. What's up? Guess what? Guess what, Fishy? You got a great guest, female guest to come on? Come on, big fishes. Oh, that's even better to hear, man. Browns and steelheads, oh man. Talking my language, bud. I've seen some of those videos of the Midwest steelhead too. They look pretty nice, man. Looks like a good fish. They're not small ones. I'm impressed by the size, man. Excellent. Yeah, that's. I was on your live when I did the same thing. It was a big half-ounce Panther Martin that I was throwing. I have these big ones for my. I have all the way up to 1 ounce spinners that we throw in the ocean for salmon. Yo, Bob! Man, it's great to see you in here, Bob. Just threw it out there, Bob. Just a second ago. I like to wait till I'm live. That's good to hear. Yeah, I'm in a lake here that does get stocked, but we have tons of holdover fish, and the bite can be pretty good right away. So if I throw out 5 or 6 times before I go live, sometimes I'll spook a lot of the fish. So I just tossed out 30 seconds ago. Thanks for popping in, Bob. It's always wonderful to see you. Hope you and the fam are doing well. Hatcheries can make a world of difference, I'm learning, Fishy. A good run hatchery can really keep a good water source full of nice fish for people. And you might have been on live when I was complaining about our Oregon hatcheries the other day. I'll just rehash it quickly if you didn't, but in the 80s and stuff, mid 80s to late 80s, early 90s, we had upwards of 80,000 plus. 80,000 plus salmon do a run in the Rogue River. And now it's down to 6 to 12 is a good year nowadays. And the only reason is the hatcheries. That's just it. They don't release as many. They don't stock as many in the tanks. They have them all. The infrastructure is built. They have dozens of empty bins that they could just be breeding fish in. But for some reason, the current current status of the hatcheries is just different than it used to be. Appreciate you, Bob, man. Enjoy whatever you do with the kids today, fam. Have a great time. Appreciate you listening, Bob. That must be why I see so many amazing steelies. I was wondering what the process was there. On our rivers here, we have a neat process called brood stock. And there's only, about a half a dozen rivers out of probably the 30 that enter off the Pacific Ocean into California, Washington, and Oregon. But those few rivers that do, we have a chaos. Good morning. We have a program called brood stock. And what that is on the river, there's a holding tank. And if you to catch a really amazing steelhead when you're out there on the river, and it's just like the biggest male you've seen in a long time, or female, then you're incentivized to bring this thing to the brood tank. And it's a giant like holding tank in the river, and you bring it there. Ooh, yep. And so then the Fish and Wildlife Service come around. AJ, good morning, y'all. They come around and check these broodstock things daily. And there might be a way to notify them that you've put a fish into that. And so they come and get this fish. And then they take that giant fish that you've left in this tank up to the hatchery. And they use it as their breeders. And so they've begun to work with fishermen out here, because the anglers will catch just the most amazing. Oh, thank you so much, Dorothy. I appreciate you. Well, thanks for hitting the like. Hope you get a little chance to see the scenery. It's a beautiful morning here. And so it's really helped a lot of these rivers, because the hatchery trout, or say steelhead salmon that are getting released, are of like the best genetic quality we can have, because the fishermen know, when you're out there and you get something that you pull into your boat and you're like, I fish here all the time, and this is the daddy of them all. Most fishermen just release them. Did I miss Mandy? And so Mandy Candy, sorry, we went by real fast, I didn't see you. Good morning. And so that broodstock program really, really helps the genetic diversity here. And so some of these hatcheries will have some of these old fish, and they don't look the best. They're great trout for breeding and things like that, but they genetically wise, they're looking a little aging. So there's been programs that are trying to expand that broodstock to get it to darn near every river. And it's really great, because the fishermen have been requesting it for years. They've been like, hey, is there any way we can help out? Is there any way we can bring you some of these amazing genetics when we catch them? So, like I said, a real good run hatchery it's the lifeblood of these game fish that we tend to stock. Yeah, they're They brought them down to Chile, down to like Argentina and Patagonia. I think that's what it is. And I watched these Stay Fishy Adventures. And so they brought the salmon down there a decade or more ago, and they have been thriving. You're talking like some of the best salmon fishing now is down there in Patagonia. And you watch that thing, and they set world records. They're getting 90+ pound salmons there. And I mean, I thought us people in Oregon up here, and I thought what my mom used to go catch in Alaska, and she'd catch a 70 pounder every so often. Now, I thought that was a big salmon. But when they're approaching 100-pound salmon, and they just head out in these rivers, and they can hit a 50 pounder like it's nothing. Yeah, that's massive, AJ. Check it out. There's a guy called his show is Stay Fishy Adventures, and he'll show you. And they built a fishing lodge down there, and it's becoming kind of like the world hotspot for massive salmon, where people used to go up to Alaska all the time for these massive pilgrimages to get a 60 pounder. 80 if you were lucky, but now they're shooting for 100-pound. And when you watch them catch a 70-pounder, the size of that salmon, oh, and these are like right there in the freshwater area too, so it's the best eating you've ever seen. My mom used to get those 60-pound. Yeah, almost 2.5 times a 44-pounder. You imagine that? My mom, I saw a 60-pound salmon that she would bring home a lot, and they would bring these giant kings, the Chinooks, from up in Alaska when they'd go up there, and oh boy, that is a big fish. And so the first cut after the head has been removed off a big fish like that, which some people call steaks, but when you get such a giant salmon like that, it's actually called a roast. And so it'll be about 9 or 10 inches long, and depends on how you cut it, it'll be about 3 or 4 inches across. But then the thickness is where it gets you. It's like 4 inches plus thick. It's giant. It's like a small loaf of bread. So my mom's favorite way of taking that thing is she would take that roast and she would slather it in mayonnaise. And I was like, "What are you doing, Mom?" "Nikki!" And so you can imagine a piece that massive, a salmon roast. Yeah, that's what we called them, because they were so massive. You're talking 4-inch thick by 3 inches across by about 10 inches. And it thins down to 2 inches at the thinnest part. Yeah, Nikki, straight up. And so it's got to be slow cooked for like an hour. And so she would slather this thing with a 1/4 inch of mayonnaise, just regular old mayonnaise out of the jar. And I'd be like, "Oh, I don't know about this, Mom. It's going to be gross." And she'd wrap it in aluminum foil, and they put it in like they had a real nice barbecue. So then they would toss that puppy in the barbecue, cook it for sometimes 2 hours on real low. She opened it up out of that aluminum foil. There's not a trace of mayonnaise left. Whatever it did, she would say that it protects the juices and it traps everything inside it. So then the salmon cooks that whole time. You crack into it, and it's just the best tasting thing you've had in your life. And so when you get like those 70, 80-pound salmons, that's what you're dealing with. The first cut is beyond a steak. I love those. Come on, fishies. I studied the West Coast, the ocean, and things like that. We have this underwater ocean current that hits the West Coast from way out close to Japan and things like that. It's called the Aleutians, and it's the Aleutian chain. So it's like a water current that flows, and it just slams into the West Coast. And it brings with it a ton of plankton and all this stuff. And water temperature relates to this as well. So this current, the Aleutian lows, it's an under ocean current. It comes slamming to the West Coast, and the bulk of the water goes north towards Alaska, or the bulk of the water goes south towards Mexico when it hits the coast. And about every 20 years, it will change. They couldn't exactly explain why it changes, but the current of the Aleutian lows change. And so when it hits the ocean, hits the West Coast, and it heads towards Alaska, it brings all this plankton with it. And with that is a chain reaction. And so Matthew, good morning. Chain reaction ends up being that all these other fish end up being able to get bigger. So the salmon who eat them end up getting bigger. And so about every 20 years, a pattern shift happens where Oregon and Washington and California have, good morning, Frenchie, have this beautiful salmon season because the conditions are perfect. The water temperatures and everything are just where they want it to be, and there's enough food in there. And then about every 20 years, it'll switch, and it'll go back up to Alaska, way up there. And then that region has like some of the best salmon fishing and ocean conditions. And when it switches and say Alaska has got perfect conditions, it'll warm the water temperature up. Alexander, good morning. And what had happened when I was living there for about a 30-year period in Oregon, it warmed our oceans up so much. We had like 65-degree water out in the ocean. And it was equivalent to Bahamas and stuff like that. I mean, it was really different for us where we have, like 50-degree oceans normally. And so the Aleutian lows, they said it would affect the weather pattern as far as Ethiopia. It just had this massive change. And so if you live in a region long enough and study how the weather and everything works, you would see this. And with this change brought an excess amount of rain or kind of a drought period to Oregon. And when I grew up there in the 70s, we had a drought period. Or sorry, we had a real excessive rainy period. And then we had a drought period. And then 20 years later, when the waters came back in the 90s, we had flooding. In the mid 90s, we had more flooding than we had in a long time. So end of that story. It changes the ocean currents, it changes the temperature, it changes the plankton, and it changes the weather. It's really interesting. Spinners. Ooh, that's an interesting one. I prefer, when you go to like a panther martin, they have interesting numbers. Their numbers aren't quite the same as other spinner numbers. And so when I deal with like Blue Fox and these other companies, a 1 or 4 or the massive one, which is like a 6. So you want to kind of go by the weight. And so if I was targeting big browns or steelies, I would want probably, a 14 gram spinner. And so I think way Panther Martin does it. Wow, man. Hey. I think way Panther Martin does it, their number might be correlated to the weight. So when Panther Martin says a 15, that might be in a 15 gram. So that's what I was throwing the other day, catching some nice big browns as I was throwing about a 15. Oh man, salmon in Idaho are amazing. Absolutely amazing. I'll get to that in just one second. And so colors are where you're going to have tons of options, man. I like pure silver or pure gold. That's what I hit. That brown on the other day was a gold and black. And so the typical Panther Martin, that gold with the black with the yellow dots on it, that's slammer. And then they make these ones that got this little bit of like a little bit of fur on it. And that's actually one I hit. It had that black kind of fur on it. And so with the spinner, you're throwing it out there and you're hitting the right current and you're throwing it upstream just slightly, and then it starts to go downstream and it hits this swing. And that's the pendulum swing aspect that you're really going for. That's where you catch the fish 95% of the time when you're using a spinner. Is they're sitting there facing upriver, sitting behind a rock or something like that, and then your spinner does that swing. That trouble. So let me finish that. It'll do that swing around there, that pendulum kind of motion. And so when you cast it up there and you keep your tension right, and then you'll feel the action of your spinner, and it does this beautiful pendulum swing, and the fishes are hanging right behind a boulder or something like that. And then your spinner comes right by them, and then bam, they jump out from that rock and hit it. And so it's always in that swing motion that you get it. And so you figure that exact out where you are and you get that right swing. And so you got to have the right size spinner that can handle that current and gives you the correct spin that you're after, that correct movement. There's like typically 3 different shapes of spinners. You got a bell, which is like a Vibramax, which makes a lot of noise. Yep. Yeah, exactly, AJ. I always got to make sure you check regs and stuff like that. And so then you got a torpedo shaped one. The torpedo shaped spinners drop to the bottom a lot better. The bell ones tend to only go down about 4 feet. So if you got a real shallow water source, it doesn't really matter what you're after. If you got a 10, 15 feet deep river, then you're going to want to make sure you get a heavier one. I like to get a few different colors. Like I said, the golds and then the silvers. And then I grab myself some blues and pinks, purples, just a few different things like that. Treble or a lot of times I snap the trebles off mine. It's a shallow river. Yeah. Then the Vibramax bell kind of Blue Fox Vibramax spinners probably work great. Their Vibramax bell, they make a noise when that bell spins around in there, noise in the water, and it attracts the fish. That's why it's called a Vibramax, and it's bell based in there. And so with that, you could probably do a number 3 to a number 5. You're not going to need a number 6. And then just get a few of those colors. I like to snap that puppy off and the treble off, and I put a Siwash. The type of hook's called a Siwash. It has to do with the straight shank going there. And you get that one accordingly to the right size of your spinner so it spins correctly. That's a big part of it. So to answer your question about Idaho, yes, I've caught a handful of salmon. I think I have sockeye there, and it's just absolutely amazing. Salmon has the Snake River, and so the salmon go as far as 1,200 miles. I was studying that one a while back, and so the salmon and steelhead, but the salmon especially, 1,200-mile journey. They make the Columbia River, they go all the way there, then they hit the Snake River, and they go all the way in there. These people in Alaska were commenting about their salmon traveling 300 miles. And I was like, oh, 300 miles? They're like, that's the biggest travel in salmon. I was like, man, we got you beat. We got you beat up here, because I know Idaho salmon travel way further than 300 miles. And I looked it up, and they go from 1,000 to 1,200 miles. So those salmon are amazing. But if you're a hot springer, and you're in Idaho, then you're in luck, man, because Idaho has some of the best hot springs you'll ever encounter. Root River, it's a little river that comes out of Lake Michigan. Yeah, I've watched those, and so they'll use that modified version of fly fishing. You know, that center pin, and it's just the type of reel that they use. And then we got these fly fishermen, and they'll use center pin rods sometimes, but they do a method called spey, S-P-E-Y, spey fishing. And so if you see these different guys out here fly fishing for steelhead, and then you can ask them, and you're like, you know, are you a fly fisherman or are you spey fishing? Oh yeah, fishing songs are the way to go, fishy. I dig your songs, man. Listen to a few. So I asked a guy on the Chetco River a couple years back. He was a spey fisherman, and I was like, "So what's the difference, man?" And he's like, "Well, he's like, us spey fishermen are classy gentlemen." And you know, so that was about the best way that he could describe a spey fisherman between a fly fisherman. So it's basically darn near the same setup. When I really picked his brain about it, they use underwater jigs for spey fishing. They don't have flies that float on top, so they use the strike indicator, kind of like weird little bobber guy, and they have these jigs that tend to drop down under the water. So that's what a spey fisherman does. And they slam them, man. They slam them. And that's what I saw them do, because the water is real light there. Real slow moving. We got these just fast moving rivers here. So the creeks and things that I've seen people catch those steelheads on the Midwest, it looks fun because they're small. On top of that, the water is just trickling down like a slow crawl. Fish eggs, my friend. That's what we use a lot. And so yeah, to collect and process your own, but our nice fishing stores, we have like, you know, Bass Pro Shop, Cabela's, and a few things like that, and then we have a Sportsman's Warehouse. And when I go to those big ones up in the town of Medford, which is like an hour from me, or south to the town of Reading, they have a cooler. They have a refrigerated section where they keep all their worms, and they also keep shrimp and that's where they keep the salmon roe, and they keep it in these little different tubs, and it's like sour cream style tubs. And so you can buy, and they're not very expensive, like 15 to 20 bucks for a little tub, and it's called a skein. And typically a steelhead or salmon or trout or whatever has two sides, has two sections of eggs that run down inside their belly, and both of those are a skein. And they're the eggs that are trapped inside of a protective membrane that kind of holds it all together. So then when you take your scissors and you slice, make a little 1-inch cut, you have like a perfect little chunk size. And they are cured already, and they're usually pretty red and stuff like that. So that's what I would do, is I would just check around. I would call a few different local big bait shops on the way or up there, close to there, and then just ask, hey, do you guys sell salmon roe? You guys sell eggs? Yeah, see, that's the thing about those little spinners, is that they get hard, man. And so, those little teeny tiny guys that are like 1/16 of an ounce and 1/8 of an ounce, those things barely roll. I have 20 pound, I had 20 pound fluoro on, and I was casting good, man. I was casting 60 feet probably away, 50 feet away the other day. And I had a medium action, not an ultra light, probably like a light action. Oh yeah, man, that Root River, that sounds beautiful, man. So yeah, that's also another reason. And all my years of pine cones dropping all around me. I had to make sure someone was coming behind me. I heard a bunch of noise. I'm like Bob. I like to make sure I can see all around me, and I'm always scanning. When I hear some weird noise behind me, I'm like, what is that? You mean below the hatchery? Because usually the fish stop at the hatchery. So here, anything up past the hatchery is garbage. Where we're at here, all the big fish. Oh, get hit. All the big fish stop at the hatchery. Little guy just messing with me. Yeah, exactly. We call that below the hatchery. So the hatchery is the end of the road. Hatchery is the end of the road, but there usually is river that's still before the hatchery. And you don't ever want to be there, because that's all you'll get is some little native trout or something like that was not stocked, unless they stock above the hatcheries, which sometimes they do here. Yeah, that's what we do. A mile or two from the hatchery is perfect, man. So that means all those hatchery fish are heading home, and that's where they're going. You might have weird laws where you can only keep the hatchery fish. That fish stole my marshmallow. I got to re-rig. He was after me, I tell you. He was after me. Yeah, see, I had no action on the first location. I had to switch around. I'm going to switch the other pole around too. After 10 minutes or so, you just got to switch up. Maybe 20 minutes if you ain't got a bite in one area. Yeah, that sounds amazing. Oh, getting a bite. Oh, got a nothing. Had a bite, but I missed him. He's messing with me, man. I missed him again. Getting a little nibble. Got a fish. Got a fish, guys. We got a fish this time. We got a fish. Oh, yeah. Might have lost a fish. Yeah, lost a fish. Had a fish, lost a fish. That's how it goes. That fishy got loose on me. That fishy got loose, you see. That fishy got loose. Old fishy got loose. That fishy got loose on me. That fishy got loose, you see. That fishy got loose. Old fishy got loose. Yeah, well, what I would do if I was heading up there, what kind of gear I would take? I would take my spinners, and then I would take my river bobber, which is a light float. Just like it's called a fixed, so it just slides up and down, super easy. It's not a slip bobber that I got to use bead to hold in place and stuff like that. And then I would take a handful of worms. One of the guys that I've learned a lot from. Yeah, exactly. Weld. Hey, let me hook you up, buddy. So one of the guys that I've watched a lot of steelhead stuff on over the years, and he swears by artificial worms. And I mean, the biggest steelhead I've ever caught was caught on artificial worms. So you just get you guys have muddy creeks and stuff like that there, so I'd have a little bit of a louder worm, but you get that bobber and you get that little 4 to 6 inch worm that you're floating underneath that bobber, and then you just toss it out in that small little river with that gentle current. It just floats right by them. And that's what you also do with the salmon eggs if you can get them. Heck yes, Weld. And so when I have enough of my own eggs, and sometimes I'll want to keep them a little bit safer, I tie them into spawn sacks. But otherwise, I just tie a egg loop type of fish hook type of tying. And just search that up if you're not comfortable with it. It's a weird way of tying a hook, I tell you, man. It takes a lot of practice. About 13 little wraps around the shank of a hook. You make a weird little slidable loop that could open and close on yourself. And you put the bait on there. Alan, yo. So that's one of my favorite ways of doing it. And with that, what you got there, you just take that egg loop and you just cut a big 1 inch chunk of salmon skein full of tons of eggs. Slap it on that, slap it on your hook, maybe a 1/0 with an egg loop tied on there, and then have that puppy underneath a bobber. Oh man, that is deadly. That's how we catch a lot of the big salmon and steelhead. They'll do a thing called back bouncing. They don't use a bobber. They tie it just like that. Egg loop, big mass chunk of salmon eggs. And then they have a big weight called a bouncing Betty. No, Alan, I just had one in. I mean, it was on. I caught him, but I didn't bring him in. Got him by halfway, and he ripped his lip. But I know where they are now. Tossed it over there. I started getting a bite right away. So it's like, all right. Yeah. So for me, if I'm standing there and I'm looking straight across at a river, I'm not in the river looking up and down. I'm looking across the river, and say it's moving from the left to the right. You don't want to throw way upstream, because what'll happen is you'll have to reel triple fast. I mean, you'll have to reel so fast because it'll get snagged on the rocks. So if I'm standing there looking at a river rolling left to right, I'm casting to about 10 o'clock. That's it. Almost straight out, just a teeny bit up. I'll be casting at about 10 o'clock to 11 o'clock, not noon, not straight in front of me. I'm casting just a hair to my left. The current's moving from left to right. Hey, a fish. And You toss in there, you tighten it up, and then you'll feel that it's booking down, and it has a little bit of looseness, and then all of a sudden it's not straight in front of you anymore. It's swung to about 2 o'clock. And right around 1 o'clock or 2 o'clock, you feel it kind of hit. The current hits it, there's tautness on your line, and you feel that spinner. You can actually hear it and feel it on your line. You'll be like, you can feel it moving, slightly shaking the tip of your rod. Darn right. That's one of my favorite ways, man. Butter, garlic, onions, and then maybe I'll drizzle a little bit of maple syrup on top of that at the end. And so you throw that spinner up there to 10 or 11 o'clock. You tighten your line up so the spinner doesn't drop into the rocks or anything foolish. And then all of a sudden it's starting to move down the river. And then at about 1 o'clock, you feel it starting to make its pendulum swing, and it's swinging back towards the shore that you're standing on. That's when you're going to get your hits. And so that's where you want to pay attention. And that's where it's swinging. Oh, I mean, I'm getting hit right now. I need to pay attention. And that's that part where it swings. Once it's fully done its swing, and you feel like the tension is dropping on you, that's when you just want to crank on that puppy and reel it in. Don't just give it slack, man, because that spinner will just drop and it'll stick behind a big rock or a log or something like that, and then it's over with, man. Snagsville, there goes your spinner. So you're going to get that hit when it does its swing. When it starts to do its swing at noon or 1 o'clock, all the way down to about 4 to 5. And it's going to be parallel with the river that you're at now. Once it's parallel to the river, reel that puppy in fast, because you want it up off the water. I'm sorry, up off the bottom. You don't want it there. Second bit of teaching business that way is, however you have the tip of your rod is where your spinner is going to go. So what that means is if you put the tip of your rod down as closest to the water as you can while you're retrieving, your spinner is going to drop lower in the water, in the river. You pull the tip of your rod up like I'm doing right here, right now. It pulls your spinner 2 feet off the bottom or so. And sometimes you have real rocky areas, and being on the bottom is really dangerous. Other times you kind of want to have it there. So as you're retrieving, you want to kind of monitor. You'll feel it if it bumps. If it's bumping, you'll feel bump, 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 bump. That means you're hitting rocks. And when you're retrieving, if you're hitting rocks, every time it hits that 5 o'clock point and I'm bringing that spinner in, I lift my rod up as high as I can. Get that spinner off the bottom. 90% of times when I lose a spinner, that's when I lose a spinner, is because I got lazy on the retrieve. And I cast it just fine. It spun around and I felt it doing its thing. I hit 3 o'clock, at 4 o'clock, I hit 5 o'clock, and then I got distracted. I started reeling it in, and then, I looked at something, and I checked my other line, and I stopped reeling, and it drops down, hits a rock, bam, it's gone. So that's what I've noticed. And like I said, I do a lot of salmon steelhead fishing, so I have these big spinners on there. And I found that I've caught many a little 10-inch fish, and the spinner is half their size. So it doesn't always matter. So if you throw that big spinner out there, because it gives you the ability to cast it, control it a little bit better. Yeah. He sure is, man. I call them rockfish. Occasionally, that's what we get. We do this type of fishing down here called plunking, and we'll throw our gear into a fast moving river, and we got this giant weight that holds it down, and up above that is our line that suspends about a foot up off the bottom where the weight's holding it, and it goes out another 3 feet, and we got this spinning kind of little torpedo shaped guy we call spin and glow. So anyway, once you cut all that cast out there, there's a little bit of bob from the current on your pole, and you're waiting for this big strike. You're waiting for the slam to hit, and then it's on because the salmon or steelhead's got you. So I'm sitting there fishing in the river one day, and I got that going on. It's sitting under share kind of fishing. It's not very active. And so I'm just sitting there, and all of a sudden my pole just wham, it drops like you wouldn't believe. I'm so excited. I grab my rod. Whoa, I feel like a great hook set. I'm pulling this thing, it's taking drag, and I'm like, yeah, guys down the shore, they're cheering me on. They're like, yeah, ooh, guys next to me got a little fish. And people are cheering me on. They're like, you got a good fish. I'm reeling, and all of a sudden I'm like, what happened? This is weird, man. I caught a stick. A giant stick was booking down the river, hit my line, wrapped up in it. I was so excited. Everyone down the way is cheering me on. Yeah, good job, brother. Freaking stick. Caught me a stick fish. I went from cloud nine to laughing. That river, man. Sometimes I feel like water sources will play jokes on you. That river did, man. It just was like, oh, I'm going to get you. I'm going to get you. Make you think you got the best fish here. Guys down there were getting a good laugh at it too, because like I said, they were all, that's how it is when you're there. You got 30 other people around you fishing. You cheer on all the other guys around you if someone catches one of them big ones. Plunking's kind of fun, but it's like a good way to sit around your truck with your buddy, bring a little barbecue, have some beers, and just celebrate the day. It's a non-interactive way. That should be a blast fishy. Yeah, the spinners will work really good for those browns as well, man. I don't know if you've ever thrown these things called by Berkeley, little gulp minnows, or just any kind of little like a plastic artificial minnow. I just take that on. I just run a regular line, and I have a bullet weight on there, 1/4 ounce to 3/8 usually, and then just a hook after the bullet weight, and then I thread on there that gulp minnow, and that's probably about how I've caught like half the German browns here on those gulp minnows, because they're predatory fish. So the brown is going to want to eat another fish more than he's going to want to eat bait. That's why those browns take spinners so well. They think it's another fish. I think it's a little game fish swimming. So we use those a lot. And I looked up other brown techniques out here, and people use them little it's not really a plug. It's kind of like a crankbait. It'll look like a little mini fish, and it's got a teeny little bill on the front of him. And it'll look like a little rainbow trout, or look like a little German brown. And we throw those in rivers here. Yeah, spinners are probably one of my favorite for rivers, man. That's the only way we catch salmon in this closest river to me. It's one of the strangest bites too, because it feels like you just hit a log or something. When I'm in this lake and I'm retrieving one of those gulp minnows or a spinner, it feels like a shark just hit your line. It's like wham, your whole rod just jerks almost right out of your hand, and you're like, wow. But those salmon. All right, Alan, be safe. That's one of my least favorite things in the world, man. I got grass allergies. When I mow grass, I'm dying. I got to take a shower right away, man. Get that grass off me. Yeah, I'll make my daughter do it. She doesn't like it, but I'm like, hey, I've been moving firewood all year. You can mow the yard, girl. Yeah, I realized I had cedar tree allergies. I moved here about 13 years ago. I lived in Portland, Oregon for about 3/4 of my years. And we got these cedar trees that blossom and leave, cedar pollen everywhere. And I got a couple in my yard and stuff like that. And I had no idea until I experienced it how bad it was. Come on, fishes. I'm going to try a few different spots here. I'm gonna try something different. I do have a couple spawn sacks. I think I've gotten 5 fish, oh, maybe 6 this year with eggs in them. So I cure them up. I haven't done as much river fishing. It's usually where I'm at. Rivers have been kind of blown out here lately. So I'm gonna try spawn sack today. It's been a bit. It's funny, man. I was watching y'all catch carp, catfish. Such different style of fishing, I tell you. Bait boxes and all these amazing things you guys got to use. Imagine you guys look at all these things I use for catching steelhead and trout. You might think the same thing. Yeah, my grass is under its winter hibernation phase. Come on, you can do it. Yeah, I can imagine. Imagine a live or a fresh, not live, but like fresh fish head, fresh something like that. If you're dealing with catfish, some live bait or some fresh bait, it's probably just going to be one of the best things you could put out there. A couple, I think 3 catfish I've caught here. Interesting. It's interesting what they like to eat. Wild man. Fly fisherman. You a spay fisherman too? Or just fly fisherman wild? That's one thing I've probably it's one of the things that's on my list to learn. I have a couple beginner fly rod setups. And I think this would be a good spot. I got like 15, 20 feet behind me to learn. It's pretty mellow right here. Flathead. Yeah. I've learned to be happy with all the stuff we have in our own world. So I try not. Oh, excellent. Conventional fly. Beautiful, beautiful wild man. I try not to be envious or jealous of other experiences in life, but I watch other people catching fish, and I put that on my to-do list. And I'm happy where I live and the fish that I get to catch, but I see all these different cool fish. I hear people talk about gar. I watch these amazing pike, and watching Bob catch some really cool fish. Chain pickerel, things like that I never even heard of. Watching all these cool things in Florida and stuff like that just seems really neat. Just gives me more incentive. We have a few odd species. Sweet. Yeah, wild man, what I find is tough is finding a good location. 4 or 5 of the amazing places I'd love to take everybody, do a live at. I get no phone reception. So I kind of notice that with different people that do lives. We're kind of we're kind of stuck on our destinational choices, depending on where we can actually get reception. I have some really interesting fishing spots that I'd love to show everybody just because they're strange. And I could catch more trout than I could imagine, and some chances of catching some big browns. We got a pike minnow. No, mud. I think I've heard of it. The name sounds vaguely familiar. Interesting. I heard the name mud puppy. I'll have to look that one back up. Ooh, I just watched the osprey dive. It was just past the bridge. It was probably out of vision. It was camera, but he was doing his killing a fish dive. Yeah, fly fishing is one of the next things that's on my list to learn. Studying the different lines. That's where I sat there a couple days and watched people and did YouTube tutorials. And it was a different language than I was used to speaking when it came to fishing equipment. So I was almost overwhelmed. I was like, wow. It's like, what is all these different things? Just the different like type of fly line and like the way they tied things, and like look like one line went to another, from one line to the next line, and then to the final line that you would have your fly connected to. And so it was definitely reminded me that I need to take my time, be patient, and study good, or find a fly fisherman to actually teach me, because I just didn't feel, after I watched a bunch of videos, like, oh yeah, I got this. I was like, what? And the delicacy as well. I was like, oh, these rods are these rods here, if I catch a fish on and I get distracted, I just throw it on the ground. I just roughhouse my rods. I'm like, no, that fly rod looks like you got to be different creature with. I just put a spawn sack out on this yellow rod, so let's hope we can get something big with that one. Oh yeah, that makes sense. A little too much. Let's get to like that. I'll give you guys a better view. Yeah, that'd be a great way to learn with casting. I've often thought of, say you do a collaboration, like we've talked about before, like say you get it like 4 or 5 people together to do a fun fishing collab. It'd be fun to do like a fish challenge games and do like that, like, put a big coffee can, 30 yards out in different spots, and then everybody has like, a little half-ounce weight, no hook or something like that on the end of their line. Do it accuracy kind of thing, so you can get it into that, inside that can first. Do a quick draw kind of thing, because I've often sat there and have my fishing pole ready, and then when I see my bobber go down or something like that, it's like, well, bam, I'm on it within like 1/10 of a second. And so I thought about like that, like the old quick draw of the gun days. I'm like, oh, I'm pretty quick with my draw on my fishing pole. Yep, that makes a lot of sense. So yeah, that's what I thought would be fun. I watched these guys get together, the addicted fishing guys I've been watching for years. They'll get together for sportsman shows, and they'll demonstrate some of their casting techniques. They'll have a little fake water area, like a swimming pool or something. but I thought it'd be fun to test an angler. Like I said, a quick draw contest. See, you know, who can grab their rod and get their finger on it, cast it, hit the target the quickest. Little things like that. Accuracy. Be a fun way to show, like when you have these lumberjack gatherings, they'll do log rolling, they'll do quick chainsawing, they'll do things that just to test each other's skills to see who's better and faster on the chainsaw. I was like, we can do the same thing with fishing. Who's quickest with the fishing pole? I don't know if you guys have ever seen any of these videos, any of these like prank videos. I've seen a handful of them. Like someone will be fishing like me, and their buddy will go out with like diving gear and go out in the lake. Grab a hold of their line, jerk on it like they're getting a big bite. And I've seen those videos, but man, they are hilarious because the angler's sitting there and he thinks he got the biggest fish in his world on because his pole just wham, and then nothing. And then it'll be like jerk, 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 tug, 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 and then he'll crank on it and nothing. And as he's letting it go, jerk, jerk, jerk again, it'll just frustrate the angler because he's thinking, oh, I'm getting hit like you wouldn't believe. It's his buddy out there in a diving suit pranking him. I thought that would be hilarious. I watched Skipjack, Cindy, and those guys. I'm like, oh, it'd be hilarious to be in the water. And just, yeah, yank on someone's line. Oh, I'm getting hit. Small hits. Small hit. Missed him. Let me go check the marshmallow, see if you got me. That wasn't that big a fish, but I didn't feel like by the hit. Oh, my marshmallow's still there. Still good. Come on, fish. Yeah, that'll be great to see you do a collab. No, I haven't seen that one, Alexander. I'll have to look that one up, man. I used to watch these ones, the Nutella pranks, man. Those ones were absolutely hilarious. I don't know if you've watched any of those where like some guy pretends to be out of toilet paper in a public bathroom or something and asks the guy in the stall next to him to give him some paper. And the guys are always reluctant, like, oh, man. And the guy takes like this scoop of this Nutella, like nut spread stuff, and it just looks gross. He'll slab it on the guy's hand when he gives him the paper. So the guy thinks like smeared poop all over him or something, and the guys freak out, man. This one gangster guy was beating the door down, was going to destroy him. You got all over my shoes, man. I love those prank videos. Nice. That'd be funny. Oh. The old candid camera days. I grew up watching weird shows like that. Must be nobody in this neighborhood. Fish are getting a lot of options here. Moving around on me. It's getting to be spring. It's going to get real warm in a couple days. And the big fish, hopefully, the cats, bass, all them other ones start waking up. Oh, it's nice out here today. It's about 40 degrees. I don't have to wear all my gloves. I do have a hat on, but oh man, it's hard. When it's in the 20s, I just really have a hard time to fish. I just don't enjoy it. My lines freeze up when it's in the 20s out here. Yeah, I'm in the mineral crystal business, and so I used to go to Denver constantly in every September, and I lived out there for about 2 years. I lived by Conifer, out by Morrison and Evergreen, and I haven't been out in a few years, but I was probably two and a half years ago. I do some crystal digging over in Utah, and then sometimes I work my way over. Got a bunch of digging spots in the Rampart Range that I like to go to as well. I haven't been there in a while. Got a bunch of friends who have claims down in Lake George, Mount Antero. That's one of the toughest digs I've ever gone on, man. 14,000 foot mountain. That mountain beat me up just getting up there, man. But yeah, I do enjoy my Denver runs. I don't have any planned. I'm gonna head out to Utah here in a few weeks, do another crystal run, and got a agate dig and selenite, a few things like that. Monkey man, good morning. Missed one fish, had him on for about half the retrieve, then he got off. I'm not liking everything I'm putting him at him, apparently. Got a few good bites. Got some fishermen behind me. I think they've got one fish. Yeah, Vermont is beautiful, man. Late 80s, I was traveling. I was up in Maine. Got to go through New Hampshire and Vermont. It was midsummer, so the colors weren't quite there yet, but boy, it was just beautiful. I traveled the U.S. a lot that summer, and when I made it to Maine, it was the first time I felt like I was back in Oregon. It was the first time I was around trees and mountains and things that reminded me of home. Growing up in Oregon, it's really wet. The half of the state, the south half isn't so bad. From about the middle of the state north, all the way into Washington up to Canada. There's a lot of water, a lot of rain, and it doesn't come down at once. It just comes down in like these small little drizzles, and so you just have a day like today here where it's just kind of overcast and small amount of rain all throughout the day. And then you'll get tired. In the mid 90s, we had a spell which was really difficult in Portland, Oregon. We had these 40 days of solid rain, just like bad rain in the middle of summer. Like the whole month of June, we never saw the sun once, and half of July just rained every day. And we live for our summers because the winters and everything are just rainy and tough and gloomy, and springs are just like the worst amount of rain. And so you live for your going out to the lake or going to the river or swimming. And that year we felt like it was taken from us. It was a big gyp year. Like nobody got the experience they wanted. 40 days of just massive rain in the summer was one of the weirdest. So it was 1995. We had terrible amounts of flooding that year. Buried the I-5. Come on, fishes. You want those eggs? I'll refresh this one. Put a new worm on. Maybe that helps. I'm gonna catch one of these giants for you all. I got a big smoker, so I do a lot of smoking on the fish. I can put about 20 good-sized trout in my smoker. So I'll catch fish for a couple days in a row, especially when the big ones are in. And then I'll save them up, cook them up, put them in the marinade for a day or overnight, and then get them in that smoker. I share a lot of it out to the friends I have in the world. Got an interesting community where I live. There's a lot of people that just kind of hang out, exist on minimal finances, if you will. And those people are always incredibly appreciative when I give them a little freezer, little sealed up, vacuum sealed things of easing trout. I got about 5-6 nice recipes. Usually I like to make sweet ones. All right, I'm gonna hold this rod. I'm not gonna play around. See if we can get a big fish. That was a nice worm I just put on. Mr. Wiggle Jiggle. The river that's real close to here. I'm gonna go live again tomorrow morning, and I'm thinking I might do the river. I might try that. I modified a cool chest mount so I can bring everybody with me. Try to do my best to keep the shaking or the unstable movement to a minimum, so no one gets blurry visioned. But yeah, that's where I'm thinking about going tomorrow. So I'll demonstrate some of those spinner techniques a little better in person tomorrow. Try and slam. The only downside is that like there's limited fishing spots, and then in a river, if you're fishing for browns or steelies and even trout in a river, once you've disturbed those fish, you got to wait like a good half hour or more before you get another bite. So the way I was taught, a spinner is loud and obnoxious. It's the equivalent of like an ambulance driving down the street in your neighborhood with lights blaring. A spinner is very loud and obnoxious in the water. And so all the fish around hear it, see it. And if they're very skittish fish, then that's it, man. If they don't attack that spinner, then good luck trying to get them to bite. So spinners are usually the last thing that we throw. So you want to throw your bobber with something floating gently, a soft bobber that doesn't make a lot of impact, a lot of noise when it hits the water. So a small bobber, float worms underneath there, live worms. Steelheads love night crawlers. They absolutely do. But the problem with that is so do all those other trout, little babies, and so do bass. And so in a river, you can catch nice steelhead on a night crawler, but you'll most likely catch little fish is what you'll end up catching. So when I go to a river, especially a nice calm one, I sneak up there. I put all my stuff real far away, and I get geared up, and then I walk that last 30 feet quiet because they're facing upriver. They're looking or waiting. So if you walk upriver and throw to them, they'll see you a mile away. So they won't bite anything you got. So you want to sneak up on them. And they're looking upriver. And so you're downriver of them. So they can't see you yet. You're behind them. And so you throw your little floats way up there and you let it float to them. And bam, you'll catch them, and then you'll pull them towards you, which is behind the fish. Once you've spooked that little group of fish that's in there and you caught one, rarely that you're going to catch another one from that group. So that's the problem about river fishing. You probably could get away with just letting the night crawler. Most of the time, when the steelheads decide to leave their ocean or wherever they're, in your guys' case, the big lake, when they're holding up, they're going where they're going with a purpose. And so they're heading up river. And so if they encounter that worm that you got there, they'll eat it. Most other trout, they all live within like a half mile. Most trout in a river will live in a half-mile section of the river their whole entire life. So the trouts that live in that river, after you throw your stuff in, say if you threw a night crawler out, you might get some action on some of those local little trout, little 10-inchers that live there. And then after those guys have been caught or don't want to bite your stuff anymore, then you're going to wait for the steelhead to book up river. And as they're booking up river, they might see a worm and be like, yeah, I'm down for it. And so typically you got there's like 3 sections of a river. You know, you have this tail out, which is the very end. You have a calm section in the middle, and then you have like a little fish right there. You have a drop in current and drop in elevation. And so, well, I'm speaking of the rivers that we have out here on the West Coast, and they have a certain style to them. And when they move pretty fast and they have this elevational drops, they'll go to a calm section and then they'll have a tail out where it starts to get to be real big rapids again. And that's where we catch a lot of them. You know, the types of rivers that I've seen a lot of the Indiana ones and stuff, and I assume they're pretty similar to the Wisconsin ones. So it's a slow moving, kind of dark colored, the size of a creek that I would call a creek, but it's, like I said, 3 feet deep usually at tops, maybe 8 feet across, 10, 12 feet across tops. So they're not the biggest rivers. So, I don't think they have a current that's strong enough to pull something along the bottom. We like to pull our eggs, or we do bead fishing. And when we've got a fast current, we throw something out in a river with a small enough weight to allow it to just skim along the bottom. I don't think you guys can do that there. And I think if you were to put a bobber out there, it's gonna gently, just slowly work its way. That's what I would try. Best thing to do is, ask local guys. Go to that, find the localist bait shop, good bait shop, especially one that might have those eggs. And then you go in there, and then they'll just tell you, oh yeah, this is what they're biting on. This is the setup. And that's what I found works the best, is that I can tell you what works really good out here for my Oregon and California fish that you might get out there and like, oh, they don't want nothing we got from that. And that's what I had to learn here. River to river, it just changes. Like I'm going to change right now. I'm going to toss a bobber out. I see some fish moving around real close to me. You can't go wrong with that spinner. Yeah, I'm going to take some GoPro and do some interesting GoPro action at some of these funky places. Can't do lives. That's what you were mentioning, Fishy. You can't really do live for that steelhead place. We got this thing called it's a pump house. It's like a weird little power station kind of odd thing. And it's this like sub channel they made from this lake to this river. And they divert the water, and then they use it for like some kind of power factory or something. And it's just amazing for fishing, for catching weird little trout, and terrible for filming though. Come on, let's catch one of these fishies. It's just hanging out. Yeah, that sounds nice. all those browns are going to be sitting there. They're going to be just looking upstream, just sitting there waiting. That's where I caught one just the other day. It was a real big current area. And then after the current, it dropped down to what we call tail out, which is where it mellows out. It goes from 5 feet deep to 2 feet deep. And then the current just slows down. It goes from being that real massive, intense current going through all those giant rocks and forming that big pool, and it gently smooths out, and then all of a sudden it'll drop down again to a real fast moving current. And that's where we find a lot of the fish, is in that tail out section. What's your fishing schedule for going live, Fishy? I tried to look on some of your community posts and I didn't really see it there. I thought I heard you mention it the other day. Right on, Alexander. I'm so happy for you, buddy. So happy. Oh man, what a fun time of life. Enjoy your day. Okay, that's what I thought. I thought it was a Monday through Thursday. That's what I thought. I enjoy being on your lives. Enjoy hanging out with you in Greece. So I was like, I see a lot of people seem to have families and they have weekend commitments. So I was like, oh, I can do weekends. Do weekends all the time throughout spring. Try to figure out a niche where the world will expect me to be online doing lives around those times. Listening to Lashana, some of her tips. I was like, okay, I see how it's going. I've been watching Justin. Yep, that's how it goes. Yeah, I live my life in a kind of random way, and it works for me. But I was noticing the YouTubes and stuff like that, and the algorithms and the whole community aspect seems like works really well when it's a structuredness. And people was listening to her talk about that, about how they'll push you out a little bit more when they know that you're going to be there doing lives all the time. I'm watching Thunderstruck. It's like he went from had under 1,000. He was like, and I think I had him on 3 different accounts to help him get to 1,000 that one night. And I turned my back and he had 1,500, and now he's over 2,000. It won't be long and he's going to have more than any fins. And it's like, he's got a good camera. Heck yeah. Yeah. And so I noticed I just watching sub counts just go up like crazy. And it's like, okay, I think Justin's got a good grip on it. He's figuring out what the algorithm wants. He's figuring out what the people want. You can sit in his lives and he just gets endless new people. Sub counts just go up like crazy. Watch hours go up like crazy. Yeah, that's, I'm still trying to figure out exactly how much I'm going to end up putting into it. I have a couple other businesses that I run, and summertime it gets to be a little hectic. It's I live in this mountain community where that's when we celebrate. That's when we go out and socialize and do a lot of fun things. As a musician, we play a lot of our gigs. We hang out with a lot of the people that are traveling. So being slave to a YouTube because you want a certain level of growth. I understand, but to me, it's like I got to have a balance with it to where I don't ever want fishing to become miserable, where it's like, oh, I have to go fishing. I promised everybody, and I gotta do my 30 lives this month, and I watch that Faith Mary comment like that. She's like, I said I was going to go live every day. And so she'll like, oh, I'm coming on. And she just looks tired. She looks worn out, but she'll do her live anyway because she promised to do it. And it's like, well, I don't know if that's the best. When you should always be like enthusiastic, happy to be on live, not like, oh, this is my job. I got to be there. Yeah, exact. You got to have a life. You know what I mean? That's always the way I've done things. I've always been my own boss, my own companies and stuff. And I don't like to work myself to the bone. I've had a lot of people ask me to step out in the public view more often. I stepped in that elder role a while ago, and I offer that assistance to a lot of these youngsters in my community. Oh, getting hit. Missed him. Yeah, he got my marshmallow too. He got my marsh. Yeah, I've seen a lot of live musicians over the years. I'm a real big live concert guy. And I followed the Grateful Dead around and a bunch of other great musicians. And when I would see the bands play that just were doing it because they had to, not because they really wanted to, and you could really notice it, man. One of the lyrics from a song says it's hard to be cool when you're playing for the profit. They really know it if you got it or you lost it. And that's true in music, man. If you're only playing music because you want to make money out of it, man, the fans know it real fast, bro. And it's like you're a sellout. You don't really believe in what you say and what you do. So I never wanted to be that. Uh-oh. Getting a hit already. Did he take my marshmallow already? I'm just going to have to one rod this thing. I'm going to get this fish. Venture. Hey. Yeah, that's me there. That's me in a nutshell, Fishy. I'm an old radio listening guy. I was raised on the radio, and we had a bunch of these morning DJ guys. And one that I listened to for a long time was this guy named Mark and Brian out of LA. And they were just amazing, spontaneous, spur of the moment kind of comedian types. And I feed off that. And when you know, when somebody says something, makes a perfect moment for a little comeback kind of humor. You feed off that energy, and I like the spontaneity of humor in the moment. Someone does something. Sometimes you'll throw it out there and it doesn't work. Sometimes it does. Like the milking hour, it was great, man. Just hanging out. And it's like there'll be times where I come up with lots of funny little puns, little fun things to throw out there, and some of them get a little inappropriate. So I learned to just, I think I'll keep that one to myself. But that's my kind of humor, is like when everyone else is just going crazy, and then your mind will come up with a couple little comedic ideas to add to that whole good time. These fish have been hitting, but I had one on the line, lost him. That's about it. Been an interesting fishing morning. Water's been rising here like crazy because of all the rain. Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm about as well. I watch a few people that are natural, and they're just by themselves. They're their own personality, and it can be a good personality, and it can pull you in. Cindy, Skipjack is great, And then I've watched a few people that are just kind of slow, and they don't want to talk much, and it's it's less desiresome. You watch someone like Justin, and he's just a little humor here and there, but straightforward fishing, and just so many beautiful hours and good scenery. Bob and the family, it's great to watch. I watched another guy who changes his whole personality, and the way he talks and the way he says, and he acts really flamboyant. And then you'll notice, like, if someone comes around him, like another fisherman, he changes the way he talks, and he changes his words, his whole tonality. And I realized after a while that he kind of puts on an act. He puts on a certain particular face. And that kind of rubbed me wrong after a while, because it's like, oh, he's not being genuine. I feel like you get to know Bob, you get to know Skeeter, you get to know Brad, Bouncer, you get to know all these guys because they're just who they are. Same with you, Fishy. It's like, oh, you get to know your sense of humor. But this other gentleman, I was like, oh, I can't tell. I don't think he's like that in real life. That's just his, like when you do the game show contestant kind of guy. Now, you could see through it that's what you're doing in the moment. Oh, come on down, and that's funny. But I cannot. Yeah, exactly. I was reading your comment, Fishy. But entertaining the people, you could see that you were being the game show host for a second, and then you go back to your normal Fishy. But if you were that game show host guy the whole time since you ever first started your channel, you were just like, hey everybody, it's like the morning zoo. Glad to be here, everybody. Chuck, look. It's not real. It's not yourself. It's a facade to get people to like you. Getting a little nibble on this one, man. These fish are schooling me today. There's days where I school them, days where they school me. Yeah, I think being silly is the way to go. Oh, what did I snag on? What did I get? Log. Oh, come on. Oh, just a little branch. Should be able to get it. I got a stickfish, guys. Big stickfish. Big stickfish. Gen X. Hey, hey. Missing the bite, man. I'm not even goofing off. Sitting here with the pole at the ready, man. There's days when I'm like reading chat and I'm not noticing a bite, and then I'm like, oh, fisherman error. These fish just aren't committing. They're giving me that little tease kind of bite. Bound to get one of these fish. Exactly. That's it. You know what I mean? I'm a family man, so I appreciate family people. You know, I raised my daughter as a single dad from age 4 to age, she's 18 now. Her mom is in the picture in a certain sense, but my daughter doesn't really enjoy it. So she's never hasn't hung out with her mom in 7 years or so. So that's why I appreciate Bob's channel, and I appreciate any, Grease, JR, these family men, yourself included, Fishy. I appreciate family men. It's an energy and frequency that I get along with well. Come on, I'm gonna get this fish. I spend enough time here fishing that I get to know the difference in bites. I mentioned it before that if I take a small worm, just enough to cover the hook, like kind of like a grub. Yep. And so if I take and just cover my hook with a small worm, they won't mess with it. But I got to leave this massive extra worm, and then like they've been doing, they'll just do these light bites. They'll just take the worm that's off the hook. They won't fully commit. Yeah, growing up on the age of radio, I used to call the radio all the time. I lived in Portland. I had a hot streak for like 2 years in a row. I won about 20 different things. I had one of 92 keys to try to start this like $20,000 boat. The dude like 3 behind me won it. I won endless concert tickets. I won tickets to this Tournament of Champions in 1992, where the dream team of basketball came to Portland to play. And so I got to see Michael Jordan, Larry Bird, and Magic Johnson, and all these amazing guys. I was able to sneak down to the court and, be 15 feet away from Michael Jordan, 1992, when he was king of the world. And so I loved the radio, man. I was raised on the radio, old radio listener. And so listening to those old DJs just chit-chatting and their comedy, just they'd used to be like two good guys, and they'd bounce off each other. Come on, let me get this fish. He's nibbling. Come on, fish. You want it. They're getting smart on me, man. They're getting smart on me. So I was used to the little teeny skits the radio guys would do, with just kind of just gentle humor. That's just all about playing around, having fun. Little they'd do fake contests, try and fool your partner kind of stuff. You'd call in and have a girl tell her husband that she's pregnant or something like that. And, the better a job she could do at selling it, she'd win a prize to some concert tickets or a trip to Disneyland or something crazy. So those guys would do all kinds of funny stuff. I mean, it would just crack you up, the things they would do. Yeah, hockey is one of the few that I just didn't really enjoy either. I mean, I can sit through some baseball, World Series time. I get excited. I like watching those games. But my dad took me to a bunch of pro baseball games. Anaheim's A's back then. I'm not sure if they're a team anymore, but it's boring, man. I used to love to go see the Rams, Herschel Walker, and those guys. My dad would take me to. Seeing Jordan was cool, man. Bird and all those guys. I was lucky enough to be a serious basketball fan when Jordan was the man. I moved back to Portland. I left Wisconsin in 1989. Showed up at my mom's house on Mother's Day. I was like, "Hey, here's a gift for you. Can I come stay with you?" And I was 17. I was about to turn 18, and I lived in Illinois briefly before Wisconsin. And so I was telling everybody about this upcoming, Chicago team. This was 89. And they're like, "Oh no, Detroit, Portland, they're going to win it." No, not with football, man. You need a whole team. Basketball, one man can really make a difference. And so everyone in Portland back then in '89 didn't believe me. I called it. I'm like, "I'm telling you guys, man. I'm like, who's going to win the next year? Chicago." And they're like, "Oh, whatever." I'm like, "No, man. I've been watching this team. They got the Scottie Pippen now, and they're going to push it over the top." And they did. They won that year. And remember that the guy I was bragging to like that. He came back and shook my hand. He's like, "Man, you called it." He's like, 9 months ago. He's like, "You said Chicago was going to win." I was like, "Yeah." I was like, "It's nothing like this Michael Jordan guy. He's something." So I watched him. Jordan had this 63-point game against Boston, and it was just one of the best live games I ever watched on television. It was spectacular. And so Jordan made the game a better experience. That's what was amazing. Now the state of basketball is in a really bad place. They've lost like 2/3 of their audience, and they're just shrinking. And it's there used to be these feuds where other teams and players really hated each other. Matthew and Mommy's World. Hey, how you doing? We're trying to catch them here. I'm getting little teases. Keep missing them. Getting these little bites. Not getting a big enough bite to really want to bring the fish in. It's still pretty. Yeah, you might have been a little young when I watched the Brett Favre Green Bay eras too. I know that was fun. I at Green Bay the what was it, early '90s. Then it had to have been early '90s when Dallas was kicking butt, and then I think that's when Brett Favre was probably kicking butt with Green Bay. Yes. You're very welcome. My name is Blue. I just go by the name Blue, Matthew. Favre. Yeah, I remember like something about Mary. Favre. However you want to call it. Thanks, Matthew. I enjoyed watching Montana. Joe Montana was one of my favorite QBs that I ever got to watch. Oh man, of course I go over here and then this rod gets hit like you wouldn't believe. Man, these fishies. I go to reel that one in, and they come over here and steal me blind. Come on, fishies. I'm gonna get this fish. It's my challenge for the day. I gotta get one of these fish that keep messing with me. Set this rod down. Give it all my attention. Wow. Yeah, Montana was probably as far as football, I see it in Tom Brady. I saw a little bit of it in Russell Wilson, and he just had that ability to take over a game. Like John Elway was similar. I felt bad for the Buffalo Bills in the 90s. I think they made like 4 in a row. They kept losing them. I was like, oh, that was, I think, Kelly, maybe? Kelly is quarterback. Oh, I'm getting a hit. Come on, fish. Uh-oh. I think I got him this time, guys. This might be some head pull. Got him this time, guys. Oh, and this one's pulling drag. This one ain't messing around. Let go. Let go. You got to let go of that. Oh, he's got me wrapped up. Got me wrapped up. He got me stuck on this log, but I got to get him off. Come on, Loggy. Oh, this is dangerous, guys. I'm out here in the water. Come on, buddy. Get off this log. Oh, he got me good. He wrapped me up on this stump. Oh, he might win. Oh, he might win, guys. Oh, I don't know how to come off this. Oh, come on, fishy. Oh, will you let go of that? Oh, this is terrible. Come on, let go. Let go. Get it off there. Oh, he's a good fish, and he's right there, guys. He's stuck on this. What did you do to me, fishy? Oh, he got me stuck. Come on, get off there. Get. Oh, this is terrible. He's got me stuck on a stump. Stuck on a stump, and I don't have my waders, so I can't go out there. Oh, this is bad. I'm just going to have to do my best. It might end up breaking it. Oh, come on. Oh, I feel bad for this fish. Come on. One fish. Oh, yeah, come on. Get it out. Get off there, fish. Get off that. Get off that. Get off that. Come on. I'm sorry, I'm not reading chat at all. I'm trying to get this fish, guys. He's stuck. Get off there. Come on, fish. He's about 16, 17-inch fish. He's a good-looking fish. He got himself stuck. Oh, there's no chance, man. There ain't no chance, guys. Oh, what did he do? Come on. Oh, I'm being patient instead of just trying to rip my line. I don't want to. Come on, fish. You can get it off there. I think I'm just going to have to break it. Oh, doesn't even want to break, guys. Yeah, they're broke. I had no choice in that one. Now I got to try and get out of here without destroying myself. Oh, you guys probably saw that. I gave it so much slack, Doug. It stuck itself on like a little part of that stump, man. It was ridiculous. I was right. I was right there in that stump. It had me stuck on that thing. It was ridiculous. I was trying to get him to let go, and he wouldn't. Oh, frustrating. He had me. But I didn't get skunked. No skunk, but junk. Whatever you want to call that. I got to redo the whole line. Yeah, what he did was he swam underneath a part of that stump, and then got my line stuck up on it, and it got literally was like in a split of the wood in this stump, and it was zero chance I could get that out from my angle. I kept trying to wiggle jiggle at the fish pole. No. Let's go get him again, y'all. Sorry if I missed y'all. South Wisconsin. Yeah, I just had one on, and it's nice. Make it hooked up, Doug. Decent sized fish, and then he smoked me because he swam over to this nice little stump right here, worked himself underneath, and then he hooked my line on the top part of that stump. So I was able to jump on some of these rocks, get myself way out there. Cool. Just wanted to double check the chats. Man, I had his butt. That was disappointing. He's gone. I don't see him over there anymore. So come on, let's go get him again, y'all. I gotta re-rig that whole setup. Perfect. South. I saw you messing around with that night bot last night. So you mentioned live. I was hoping it'd be a little bit later because I wanted to come visit you live. I always only do a couple hours, so I'll probably be out of here in a bit. Did you figure out that Nightbot stuff pretty well, South Wisconsin? I also dug that, not even sure what you want to call it, that you made for Skipjack Cindy. I watched that art that you created with Cindy and stuff on it. That looked pretty cool. That was a fun fish to catch, man. He fought. Yeah, I'm not a keyboard warrior. You probably, I heard you mention your background. Walleye and sturgeon. Oh, man. I'm about 5 hours away from the Columbia River where there's some sturgeon fishing. Looks like a blast, man. I'm thinking I'm going to put that on my list. Oregon's really interesting. So if I want to go up there, I gotta buy these normal fishing license. Then I have to buy these. They have these special water area extra tags you got to buy. So you got to buy another $20 tag to fish the Columbia. Got to buy another $20 one if you want to fish down here in the South. Yeah, accidental catch is one thing. Accidental catch. We got really interesting rules here in California. They'll shut salmon season down sometimes, and then it's just down for the year, maybe two. But that is just for the Chinook. The coho salmon is a no-no in California. You have to instantly release a coho if you get one. Same kind of deal. There's just you better not ever be intentionally trying to get a coho. You could accidentally get one and release it is one thing. That's probably why I have to have so much strange gear up here for salmon and steelhead, because we get like pretty much year-round runs. We get spring and fall salmon, and then we get winter and summer steelhead. So it's kind of like 1, 2, 3, 4, and then we get the springers we call them, the spring salmon. They're a coho, and then we get the Chinook salmon in the fall. The Chinook salmon don't want to eat the same things that the spring salmon do. Winter steelhead don't quite bite the same as summer steelhead. So what works in one season for one won't work for the other. So you end up having all this interesting gear that you got to accumulate. Not reading chat for the very second, guys. I'm re-rigging that line that broke with Mr. Fish. I wanted to show you guys that fish, so I have to break him off. I gave him a lot of slack, and he had me stuck on a little splinter of wood that came off the top of that stump. So then when he would create slack and pull down, he just like kind of pulled the line further into that crack of the wood, and so I was done once he had me way in there. If I wanted to get wet, I could have got it. I was watching G-Man fishing up in Oregon a week ago. He lost a lure. I was like 20 feet out, and he stripped himself down to skivvies and just walked out there and got that lure. And there's no way I was going to do that for that fish. I'd like to catch one of them nice ones for y'all before the day's over. I tie the trilene knot. I got tired of the standard fisherman not giving out on me. I learned later that you have to put a good amount of moisture on your knots, and it's that standard fisherman knot. If you don't got enough moisture on there when you cinch it down, it'll cinch incorrectly. I think that's what was causing me problems years ago. I lost a bunch of fish, and I'd be like, "What happened?" And the knot was just giving loose. I'd reel in, the fish would be gone, and I'd look carefully, and it wasn't a break on my hook line. It wasn't a break on the line. It just came unraveled from my knot. So I got tired of that old fisherman's knot. I learned the trilene knot, and it has never let me down. I've never lost a fish because of that knot being wrong. All right, I'm back. Polymer knots now. Yeah, that's a good one. I do, the double uni knot when I go from yeah. The double uni is when I go from braid to fluorocarbon. That's my most common knot. MVP in the house. Hey, buddy. Venture, let me hook you up, buddy. You seem to know everybody. Everybody knows you. Your name just eludes me for the second. Yeah, a lot of people use the blood knots. I like the double uni. It works really well for me. I had a buddy who was Boy Scout, Eagle Scout, and all this good stuff when I was real young. I was not into. I kind of took a big chunk of fishing off in my life, and he was all about his knots, and I never understood it. Now I get it. Yucatan one. Cool. No, the Yucatan, that's interesting. No, the egg loop. That one frustrates me. I got to have the right kind of hook. It's got to have the right kind of shank and right kind of distance on it. You cannot use a bait hook. Bait holder. That one bugs me. So many wraparounds, so many parts for the egg loop hook to not work right. I'm gonna get this fish. Oh, come on. Let's go recast this baby to the zone. I see a marshmallow over there. It's got me concerned. Yep. Somebody was playing with me. So I saw a marshmallow. Okay, let's get this fish. Celebrate the day with a fish. Thought I saw a marshmallow out there. That's what I like about using the marshmallows to float my worm up, because I can tell if I've missed a bite, because my marshmallow comes up. That's funny. Come on, visit. Yeah, for the trout here that we're after, all trout in general, they don't sit right on the bottom. They're not like the catfish or anything like that. And they sit about a foot off the bottom. Steelhead do the exact same thing. And so you want your presentation to be about a foot to maybe 16 inches off the bottom. You want it to be floating right there in their face. So then when they swim around, it's just right there, and it's so tempting. And so we take about a half a night crawler, thread that on first, and then I use a mini marshmallow, and I soak them. I soak the marshmallow in scents, and I often use a sweet corn and a couple other things I'll toss in there. And that really is what drives them crazy. All that scent on that marshmallow. So then that marshmallow pulls your worm up, and then sometimes a fish will grab it and he'll take it towards you. And so in that kind of sense, you don't get any tug on your pole. You just get slack. And all of a sudden you notice there's a little bit of slack on your line if they take it far enough towards you. But sometimes they'll just barely mess with it, and then that marshmallow will float up, and you don't even notice the pole moving. I've watched this cool underwater photography of fish biting, and they'll come up and just gently peck at them, and sometimes you'll get 6 or 7 fish that mess with it, and it doesn't even register to us here because it's not enough of a tug. But that seems like what'll happen, and then all of a sudden I'll be like, oh, there's a marshmallow right where my bait is. Yeah, that's the what I like to do is I thread the worm in to where I cut off I take a big long night crawler and I cut it in 2, and I thread it in the part that I cut, the opening. And so then I thread that worm about half the way through, and then I put the J part of the hook, the bait hook, out. So then the worm is going straight up and down along the shank, and about half the worm is on the shank and the other half is just dangling free. And then I put the marshmallow on the rest of that little J hook part that's sticking out of the worm. Kind of looks like the way a jig looks. And then you put that marshmallow on there, and then you push the hook through just barely. You want just a teeny bit of that hook to have gone all the way through the marshmallow. So when they do bite, you get a quick set. And then, yeah, the space, the leader that you want from your weight. I use slip weight, bullet weight kind of deal, so there's no tension on them when they pull. Is 14 inches on average. And that's what I've noticed about steelhead fishing is what'll make or break some people catching and having success is they figured out how to get their presentation right in that exact spot, whether it be a spinner, whether it be a bead, whether it be a worm, an egg, or whatever. That might. Yeah, I never really see people trying it that way. I'll watch people river fish at times, and they'll take a whole night crawler and they hook it through the side of the worm. They just keep side hooking it and kind of squishing it down and hooking it and hooking it and hooking it. And so they take a giant worm. I found one cut in half, threaded like that, and then you got like half the worm that's free of the hook, and he said there's squirming, worming, doing all kinds of stuff. And that's what's going to attract them. And so they see that worm on your hook floating with a marshmallow just squirming around like crazy, and then they're like, oh, I got to go get you. And after about 10 minutes, the worm is still alive. You can touch it and it'll move, but it's not like freaking out, moving around, trying to get free of the hook, which gets their attention. Wow. Wow, that bass fishing sounds like fun. Oh yeah, sounds a good venture. I do that yesterday. I watched. I think I had Skeeter on for a long time. I had Grease on later in the evening. I think I watched Oso maybe once. I think it was Lashana was on later, and then might have been a couple other fishing ones on early morning. I watched MVP for a while. That was it. I always say hi to Bob, Any Fins, for a while. After I saw how wonderful of a community Bob had created, how beautiful everyone was and supportive, and the humor and the joking with Skeeter and Brad and all those guys, I was like, this would be kind of fun. And it was actually that camaraderie. I was like, this looks this looks fun. Oh, I see that fish there. Yeah. I've seen some of those, man. And they'll like have the 24-hour feeds, just like these live feeds with nothing going on. And I'm like, hello, is there anybody in there? And I get nothing. And I'm like, what is this? The Y-Files did one a while back, and that was kind of cool. They just did a 24-hour nothingness, and they just ran old ones that they did, and all the people in chat just got to talk to each other. But I see some of these things, and there's like nobody in there, man. I'm like, what is this? Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I like watching dumb things like car chases. And so I got like I got 3 of these channels that'll pop up, live car chases, that kind of deal when the police are chasing somebody, so I'll get a notification. And those things will be fun. I'll watch them after the fact. And I usually don't I don't watch the chat. But there's a few things like that and like current events kind of things. Like this couple of guys I watch that'll just cover topics of sports related news or something like that. I can watch their show after the case, and I enjoy it. It's not like it's that important to need to watch it in the moment. Yeah, I think in my life, I've learned to do my best to not chase something that I'm after too hard, not put too much pressure on myself. And YouTube's the same kind of reality. I don't want to keep track of watch hours. I don't want to motivate myself to like, okay, I got to go network and I got to go spend 6 hours a day on here. And this is my goal to increase my sub count and get my watch count up to this and that. Personally, that just creates too much of a tension that I don't want to experience in life. Yeah, I listen to Bob. He talks about in the descriptions he puts on there when he caught fish in his descriptions, and I've been thinking about updating my my old lives and doing that. But I notice I pay attention to the watch counts too, and like when I first put them on, and then later I'll get comments and people, and so people do like watching them, and so. As someone who's made art in the form of like jewelry and things like that for many years. Wow. Uh-oh, getting hit. We had a nice little hit, but I missed it. I was reading chat. That was a chat fish. Lost that fish to the chat. Yeah, that was my fault there. I could imagine, South, you put all that time and effort into stuff, you know what I mean? I used to sell a lot of my my homemade jewelry and things like that on Etsy. At times you just get tired. You're like, I think this is my site. I think all this time and effort I've put into this, but it's really not. They set the parameters. They have the rules. And so I always appreciated my time doing stuff with Etsy, but I was always like, if I do one thing wrong, they can just boot me, and then my income, my whole reality that I think is a solid reality might disappear. YouTube, I see how people can mess up and they get booted, and I'm like, oh, I can understand, as long as the rules are very clearly explained and then people choose to break them, well, then it's a consequence. But there seems like times where people don't understand what they did wrong. Yeah, I've heard sometimes with people's channels that they won't really tell you. They don't. It's just kind of like, no, this is what we do, and this is why we said what we said, and we don't need to explain to you. Yeah, so it's got to be interesting. Yeah, the world way back when Wisconsin, was one where we had the few news channels. We had 2020, and you had a handful of weird news programs, but it was always just ABC, NBC, CBS that we got everything from. Wow, that's really cool. Yeah, I watched a guy named Peter Santinello. He came into the town that we live in, and he did a big expose and took a couple of people around and interviewed them and stuff like that. And like when he released it, it was a couple 100,000 views when I watched it. I looked at it later on that day, and it was at 1 million. 2 days later, it crested 2 million. A couple weeks later, it had gone over 3. It's about 3.5 million views now, and it's just crazy to see. And it's just like if you ever watch Peter Santinello stuff, he just interviews people and places and stuff. I used to watch, like I said, way back when we had to get our news from certain places. When I started doing independent news, watching like Tim Pool and a lot of all these other independent sources. Yeah, exactly. I remember when Fox came out, it was the newest thing. They had like shows like The Simpsons. It was like, ooh, what's this? And but now it's different. It's like you form a connection. Yeah. Yeah, I can imagine he did, probably really well on that video, man. And just simple interview. I know like 3 or 4 of the people that he interviewed and just took around, and just I live in the town of Mount Shasta, so I just talked about all the spiritualness and the strange hippie crowds that live here. And when I would watch Tim Pool, they would have 80,000 people in the live. Where you were watching super chats in the neighborhood of $500. You just endless $100 super chats go through. What looked like $5,000-$10,000 in super chats. A while ago, they were talking about it, and it was I think besides some of these weird like I forget the name of them. They'll be like an animated character that's a human that looks like a fox or something like that, and they'll do these lives, and those things get the most super chats of like anybody in the world. And then Tim Pool was right behind them. He just rakes it, man. Yeah, Luke's great, man. I used to like the Tim, I used to like the IRL that Tim did when he had Adam Krigler on. And so I still watch Adam Krigler a lot. I don't really watch the Tim Pool stuff anymore. They had a falling out, and Tim kind of showed some of his true colors, and he wasn't that great of a friend. And to me, friendship means a lot. And so I was like, I got a lot of choices, and I don't quite jive with what Tim's putting out anymore. Luke's great, Ian's great, all these other great characters. Just crazy though, man. You watch 80,000, 100,000 people in a live. You're like, wow, man. And you're just doing what you love. That's the thing, and challenging part about it is that they get, they get to where they got to keep that machine that they're doing alive. And it becomes like a big business. And that's what's tough. That's what makes a lot of the cool little things you see when they're in their infancy become tainted when they get popular. Is that quality they had when they were small disappears, and when they pressure of trying to maintain a big organization. Pure the Xander Fisherman, man. Xander Fisherman in the house. Hope you're doing well, Pierre, and everybody else. Yeah, Pierre's great, man. Great person to be subbed up to, South. Come on, Fishy. Let's get this bad boy so we can catch for you guys, man. Yeah, I'll probably be at the river tomorrow, guys. That pike perch. I was looking up some of the fish in the neighborhood of these towns that Pierre was talking about, maybe fishing, and they have this badass fish called pike perch. He looks mean, man. He looks mean, but he also goes by the name Xander and Sander. People will call him. The Wikipedia called it Xander. It was a mean-looking fish, man. That pike perch looks like he'll tear you a new one. That's cool. You're a walleye, huh? Uh-oh. Is that me or is that a bite? That's really cool. Yep. Yeah, the only thing I ever caught when I traveled to Amsterdam was a good time. Bum bum. Never did fish back then. Man, I didn't make it there for the tulip season either. I've always seen these endless videos and pictures of the Dutch tulips. I really wanted to travel at that time of year when the tulips are in blossom. Yeah, I've walked around some of those districts. That was an interesting part of walking around Amsterdam. I was like, ooh, I was intimidated by that red light district. I was like, I don't know, girls, keep on keeping on. And but talk about a fun place, man. I mean, like I'm a big food guy, and I love amazing, good ethnic food. Some of the best Thai food I had in my life was in Amsterdam. It's a place called the White Elephant. It's the best food I ever had. And I eat Thai food everywhere here in America. But man, something about that. They served it in this, they served my dish inside a hollowed out coconut. And so you got like the white meat in there that you could eat from the coconut. And oh, yeah, man. I bet here. So beautiful. Like in about a few weeks here, we get in mid-April, we get our tulips come out. So I was thinking probably similar for you guys there. But I'd loved it, man, because, you know, just there were so many interesting things that could just happen out of nowhere in Amsterdam. I'd just be there. We'd just be sitting at some square, and all of a sudden some group of like 10,000 people on roller skates come by. And it's like this endless line of roller skaters. And I'd be like, wow. And I just said people watch. And you notice that, like, these people are all beautiful. You wouldn't see a single overweight person. And I was like, man, they got it going on over here in the Netherlands. And I mean, the people are beautiful and from a genetic principle, but you're like, wow, look at how they carry themselves. From moms, grandpas, I would sit there and look at everybody, and I'm like, there's not a heavyset person in the crowd. And here in America, it's hard to find that, And you see these groups of youngsters there wouldn't be a single heavyset young woman or man. And I noticed they walk a lot. They all walk to, go get a gelato, store to store or something. So like encourage a certain amount of physical health. Yeah. Same with Oregon, man. And they're like pale as white. They're white as a ghost, man. That's the thing about Oregon women. It's like so cloudy and the sun doesn't come out much that they just don't get suntanned. And so I can always spot a native Oregon woman. She looks like a ghost. But man, I appreciate that about Amsterdam, as I would sit there and just people watch for hours. And I was like, wow. You watch groups of school kids on some kind of, maybe outing. And like I said, 40 school kids, not a single one with maybe even 10 pounds extra on them. And you're just like, wow, this culture really honors being healthy. And that's what I really, really appreciated. Hey, all right, Fishy, I appreciate you, buddy. I'm about to end it here soon. And I will catch you. When I catch you, I'll be live tomorrow, Fishy. So demonstrate some spinners firsthand in the river for you tomorrow, Fishy. Come check me out. Yeah, that's probably one of the things that I appreciated most. I would just sit there and Amsterdam is kind of like this, like the Las Vegas, like we have. And so it's like this Playboy town for all these different Europeans. People from Italy, people from Spain. It's just like this hot spot of activity. And so they seem to cater to all kinds of ethnicities there in Amsterdam. And so like say your restaurant choices are just through the roof good. And they always, they speak enough, everyone speaks enough English that you're so comfortable. I've been there, I think 3 different times. I started going there in the late 90s. Spent about 5 weeks in Europe in the late 90s once, traveling around. Czechoslovakia was incredible. Austria was fun, but Czechoslovakia in the 90s was something else, man. It was so cheap. It was so underdeveloped at that point that, you could go into like a big restaurant, you could get a giant pizza and a bunch of pastas and salads, a couple big beers, and your bill would be like $3. And you'd be like, really? How much is this big beer? Like 25 cents. And it was like, wow, man. Oh, that's really cool, Goat. Yeah, Finland. I haven't been to that part, man. I was trying, I was in Austria, and then we were going to book over to Venice. And when I was sitting there looking at, I bought like this weird train pass that allowed me just as many train rides as I wanted in a month. Carp, right on, Pierre. I'll have to make sure I got the notification on. Come watch you do that. If you're doing live, that is. Yeah, thing I liked about Amsterdam is, if you had to, you could just walk majority of the town, so you could just stay up late at night, have some good food, just walk around from place to place. I never felt nervous. I never felt scared. Like, I'm a tourist who doesn't really know my way around. It's the middle of the night. Someone might get me. That's what I appreciated about that. Austria was pretty fun, but they didn't really want American tourism there. And so they were kind of rude. It's certain like, you're American. Ugh, we don't like you. I didn't want to go to France because of that. I'd heard that they were pretty judgmental to us Yanks. Oh, I don't know, guys. I think the fish outdid me today. I had the one. I got to see them, but man, they outdid me. Yeah, I'm the same way, fishy. Kind of like that last cast mentality. It's like, oh, this will be the last one. I know it will be. Especially when I'm river fishing. I go to like an hour of last cast. The salmon and steelhead fishing, you put all this time and effort in, you got to travel, you're all the way up there, and then you're like, all it takes is the one bite, the one nice steely that's just waiting for you. And so you're sitting there throwing in and not getting nothing. You're like, man, all it takes is the one. So that last, when you get ready to leave, you're like, no, man, I just, that close. He's just about to bite. Yeah, I'd say I went to, all over London, all over Czechoslovakia, all over Germany and Austria. I think I liked Amsterdam the best out of all of them. That was just my kind of place, man. I like a good place where you can get a lot of food, safe, a lot of great entertainment, fun, friendly people. I mean, they want your money, but like London was bad, man. And I spent a week there, and I spent as much money in 1 week that I did spend in a month traveling everywhere else in Europe. It was just so expensive. Hostels were like $100 a night, and I was like, forget this. Hi, Maria. I'm doing well. Fishing, not catching much. Having a good time, though. Out here in beautiful California. Cloudy day, so no real sunrise. I went to the other part of the lake the other day just to show everybody the nice sunrise. Yeah, exactly. Steelhead, I mean, a lot of steelhead fishing. I'll go up there and I'll spend 8 hours constantly throwing stuff in the river. I'll catch nothing. And I'll go camp out and I'll be there for like 3 days. And you'll be lucky to get one fish. 3 days worth of fishing. And you're not just sitting on the bank. you're throwing stuff the whole time. You're throwing stuff on the bottom. You're bouncing beads. You're bouncing eggs. Or you got eggs on underneath the float. Oh yes, it really is. Having a wonderful time. Doing our best to catch the biggins, but they're not 100% with us. I think you guys can see the bridge and the poles a little better. Yeah. The steelhead are the kind of fish that an amateur gets lucky if they get a couple a year. Even the guides, the professionals. We're fishing for trout. We're hoping to get some big trout. The amount of time it takes, though, for that salmon and steelhead. Salmon don't bite rarely, and they're not hungry. They're going up there to pass away after they lay their eggs, so they don't care about food. They'll bite just because you irritated them. Steelhead, on the other hand, they're wow, beer. Oh, yeah. See, I was there 25 years ago. I think around 18. Yeah, 18 years ago. It's probably the last time I visited. I imagine things when I see videos of Prague, it's so different from when I was there. It was so different in the 90s. I mean, barely anybody spoke English. I'd go into these great stores and want to buy something, and they couldn't help me. They couldn't translate. They couldn't answer the questions that I had. Oh, absolutely. Yes. I'm so glad I was able to visit. I'm enjoying branching out, sharing or watching so many other people's content. It's been wonderful. Got into the fishing community. Nice people like Fishy Things. You know, he's connected to a different part of the community. All right, Fishy Things. Take care, buddy. You're my man, Fishy. That's through wonderful gentlemen like Fishy Things, I learned to meet like Oh So Ravishing and Luciana and a lot of these other amazing channels. Which is kind of like a direction I never expected. I thought I would find myself just commingling with fishermen online. And all these amazing people, you know, they come from different walks of the world. I'll have different takes, different things to learn, and get this fish. Yeah, hey Jack. Really is. It's really beautiful. It's calm, quiet right now. It's probably about 40 degrees. It's going to hit about 70 in a couple days, which is going to be nice. Spring's finally here. I'm a big gardener, farmer. And I got oh, that didn't work very well. Got about 600 starts right now. I'm working on that I have to maintain constantly, from my basils and lettuces and cilantros to got about 60 type of one pepper and about 40 of another pepper and tomatoes. And I got to start working my soil here soon. I got cover crops growing this year. Got to go start processing those. I really love working with the earth. All right, Fishy, let's get this baby. Threw my worm off when I cast it. Re-worm up. Oh, let's get this fish. Yeah, we have an interesting growing season here. I'm glad you guys got to plant a few things, man. I'm about a month and a half away from actually planting a lot of things in the ground. I got some my raspberries. I'm gonna move them from one area to the other, and I got like artichokes and my asparagus. They're gonna start coming up soon. Well, I'm in a little town called Mount Shasta, California. Maria. It's about an hour from the Oregon border in California, Northern California. It's a tourist town, mountain town, about 3,500 feet elevation, only about 3,000 people. You too, SWFF. It's a blast hanging out. I'm looking forward to hanging out in your live a little bit later on, buddy. Oh, that's cool. Yeah, there was this house that was for sale around me about 9 years ago. It was my walking route, and I watched these landscapers. Man, they redid the whole front of this house, and they put in all this amazing sod, and they did all this amazing landscaping type stuff. They sold the house. Bye now, Hinicky. Yep. And then they sold this house in just an immaculate looking yard and stuff like that. And the new owners came in. And they were like full on garden in your front yard kind of people. They had all that sod rolled up in just big piles on the side of the house. They basically stripped down everything that these people did. And I was like, oh, those landscapers it took them like a month to make that thing all cool. Just to watch them unroll. Yeah, exactly. You know what I'm talking about. You've rolled all those rolls of sod. And then imagine coming back into that place like weeks later and you're like, what did they do? They just tore it all up. But I imagine, the homeowner felt like they needed to make it appealing when they sold it. So they wanted it to look great to everybody. Yeah, absolute, man. We we're in an area that isn't really heavily controlled. We don't have a lot of HOA or weird things like that. Yeah, Maria, it's absolutely beautiful here. So yeah, if you know Mount Shasta area, you may know it. And spiritual, it's a spiritual destination for people all over the world. A lot of spiritual tourists have come here. It's really neat that way. And we get mountain tourism. We got some lakes and rivers and a lot of bicycle trails here. So we get these like bicycle enduro rides where they'll have this big long, I think they call them the grinduro. That's what they call it. Yeah, I can't stand the HOA stuff. Like in places my dad lived in Southern California. I mean, it was just so bad. They'd be all up on their case. You got everything so perfect in every single way that I'm like, it's disappointing. When I was young, I thought I could own property and own a place and choose to do with it what I want. And I kind of realized that it doesn't really work that way. And the HOA stuff can get real bad. So there's a few little communities up there that have these CCR kind of rules, but they're just nowhere near like an HOA kind of deal. They'll just, you can't have roosters past a certain age, or you can't raise, loud critters, something like that. They're minimal rules. Yeah, the trails around the lake are just something, Maria. Just beautiful trails and hiking trails all around here. It's a fun place. It was a great place to raise my daughter. She just turned 18 this last summer. So she's a young woman now, and it was safe. Raised her like I was raised in the 70s, where you could leave your door unlocked, you could ride your bicycle around, you could be out late at night without worrying about getting kidnapped as a kid. Heck yeah, Chaos. I don't think I see you go live, Chaos. You just enjoy hanging out with the fisherman crew, or you waiting to go live at some point? Oh yeah, that makes sense. I have three kids all together, and each time I had my kid when they were the first 4 or 5 years, you're kind of focused. You're really Oh yeah, that's right. I remember that now, Chaos. Sweet. And yeah, so it's like you to be a good parent. I always focused on my kids, and they became my life when they were young, and when they're in that age where they're soaking up everything they can. They ask a million questions, and they want you for so many things. I think it's very important to be as present as possible. So I always took as many things off my plate back then. And so I've always been a motorcycle rider. Yeah, exactly. No roosters allowed, buddy. Yeah, I think one of the rules of one of the places around here is once your rooster's over 4 years old, you can't have it or something, some kind of age. And then it's like, huh? Yeah, it's the formative years are really important. For kids, they really the energy that you maintain in the household will dictate a lot of their personality, what they strive for. Ooh, carp and catfish. Carp, I've never caught a carp. Never caught a carp. So yeah, that's what I noticed. That it's really important. It's like I tell my friend, his bandmate of mine, who's got a young boy. That's like that is your most important thing you have to focus on. Like the music we're making as a band is great, but it's like your job's great, but the thing that'll last the most is the energy you give to your child. It's like he'll learn, he'll have your mannerisms, he'll have a little bit of your laugh, or he'll carry things on that came from you, and then he'll pass them to his kids, and on and on. And it's like, and in a certain sense, your energy will live on and on through the teachings you gave your children. Interesting. Yeah, they stock. I'm about a mile away from a hatchery, and so they stock them here pretty regularly. They just stocked them about a month ago, so we can go on online and we can look at the trout stocking schedules. And some people will choose where they're going to go. I appreciate that, Chaos. Some people will choose where they're going to go fishing depending on what's recently been stocked. It makes a lot of sense. Personally, I like the holdover trout. I like the guys that have been here for about 2 years, 3 years, 20, 28-inch fish. But them stalkers are always getting at them. I've heard that, Maria. I've heard that. I've been watching. I asked Fishy that a little while ago, like the carp fight. He's like, oh yeah. Because catfish, it looks like sometimes they don't give you the biggest fight. I could be wrong, but it looks like you're just kind of pulling in a big old guy. What I mean by fight is it's not just like the effort it took to bring it in, but like, yeah, exactly. The adapted fish. What I mean by fight is they'll pull drag, they'll take off, they'll be like, no way am I coming in, man. And then you got to finesse that fish. You got to have your drag adjusted right so the line don't break. You got to tire him out. You got to wear him out. Then you can bring him in. But I don't know if I see that with catfish. I could be wrong. I may not have seen enough, but it looks like when they get a good bite, good hook setter, sets itself, then it's just kind of like, all right, let's just reel this fish in. When you got a big salmon or steelhead in a river, they yeah, Pierre, appreciate that, buddy. Yeah, it'd be great. I always enjoy chatting with you, Pierre. Yeah. So I think carp look pretty cool that way because they get big, but then they look like they give you an attitude. They're going to fight. Alexander, So I think that's what we're after. We want a good time. I heard a gal talking about this gal named Faith Mary, and she was like, you don't want the fish just to be sitting there on top of the water, do you? You just go up and grab them with your hands. It's like you kind of want a challenge. I appreciate that, Chaos. They tumble on the lines. That's pretty cool. Heavy-headed. I see. Not hard-headed like us humans, Gee. Yeah, when I compare fish size, the big salmon we have out here in the rivers, they're as big as these giant cats that I see people getting. But you'll have to spend sometimes 45 minutes trying to pull in one of these salmon. Like, no joke. They don't mess around. And they'll sit in the bottom. They'll sit in the bottom of that river with that current just rolling on top of them. They like use the river as like an advantage. And so it's not only you got a heavy fish, but you got the current pushing on it. So that's what I noticed. I was like, huh, different, definitely different. Well, guys, I feel like the bite's getting low on me, man. Wow. I've never caught a lake trout, man. They're not appealing to me. They look like a blubber fish. When I watch these people catch them, they're big old looking trout. But I want to ask anybody who's eaten one. It's like, is lake trout a good eating trout? So it looks like it'd just be a blubber fish, man. I don't know. I could be totally wrong, but it looks like the kind of trout that just kind of hangs out and is not the most active guy. Man, 42 pounder. I think about a 20-pound fish is the best I've got. Smaller side lake trout. That's what I was wondering. But when I see these like 25, 30-pound lake trout, they just got this big flab looking belly. And it doesn't look like a fish that's full of eggs. It just looks like a flabster. And I'm like, ooh, that's probably not a good look eating fish. I imagine it's all white in there. I can't imagine the fish is orange. Pink style, like I like my German browns. So I don't know. I would try it. I'm always the kind of person that has to try it before I judge it. I can't just say ugh without trying it. But I don't know. Wow. See, I mean, the difference between a rainbow trout and a German brown, where we have the German brown strain of brown, and the German brown fights by about twice as hard as that rainbow. And when you get him on, he's not messing around. He's pulling drag. He's not happy. The rainbows will jump out of the water. They will cartwheel. They'll tail walk. They'll be like, no, let me go. And they'll be spazzing out on the line. German brown won't do that. They won't leave the water. They just pull drag and they tear halfway across the lake. And they're like, no, I'm out of here. So the fight is completely different between the German brown and the rainbow here. Big time. All right, y'all. I think I'm going to shut her on down. I appreciate y'all being here, but the bite's done. I'm done. I'm feeling it. You guys are the best. Thanks for all the good conversation. Chaos, Pierre, everybody who's been around. You're good. I'm going to come join yous when I see yous. Yeah, Chaos, you're the best, man. I'll talk to you guys all later. Thanks for the live. Thanks for being here. Sky Blue out.